booties for black girl nerds.
My name is Shalisa Black Girl Nerd. How you doing today?
Great. How are
Great.
you?
I'm doing good. Well, I'm glad I got to talk to you guys together because I was really excited about y'all being added. It was awesome. Kofi, I'll start with you. I love Seth being added to the mix because I really would have loved for his character to be explored more because I personally feel his ideology is very more common than people think. Can you talk to me about how important it is for men to communicate their intentions up front, like Seth?
Oh, self-awareness is key, that's something that I think Seth exuded. And even in that self-awareness, there's still the humility of like, just your emotions are also strong. So it's like I realized that there was a moment where they both in their relationship some kind of assumed and I think also ignored some of this that sometimes you think self-awareness is enough, or communication is enough, but also I think with wisdom, and understand sometimes you have to discern and not take away somebody's agency to make decisions, but also you have to anticipate people's feeling, because sometimes in my personal life I've seen things where I'm like, I saw it coming, but I ignored the signs. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, but we said this. And then like that little gap of gray area could turn into a big barrier. You know what I'm saying? A big problem. So even in the self-awareness, there's layers and levels. So I think that was a reminder I received from Seth, you know.
I'm glad they threw that in there because I feel like that's something that's overlooked. They always want to talk about the women's aspect of communicating, but men as well, right? So, Logan, I've always thought you'd be a very, very crazy, talented actress, even back from like your Hit the Floor days. And seeing you in the yeah, right. So seeing you in the series, I just kept imagining how great you would have fit in with the girls as a regular. And I really feel they could have dived into Portia's story more. So if there were to be a fourth series, how would you love for your character to reprise a role, and what would you like to see them explore?
Oh, that's so generous. Thank you for saying that. I definitely yeah, it was bittersweet because I was so happy to be there. But Kofi has used this phrase, which I agree with, to be in service to the characters that are there. And, I understood that Portia was servicing the relationship between Ian and Camille. But if there was more for Portia, I. I don't know. I'm always interested in characters outside of their relationships, outside of their love interests. I think that's really important on the show. But I would be so curious to see, she's a young black woman caterer with her own business. Like that's really interesting. What else is there? Um, and I think someone with that kind of open heart that she had in terms of creating these embryos with Ian and then being like, you know what? You got it. I would love to see that person and how she lives her life. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do love the niceness of it. It wasn't like too catty. I like that they didn't put cattiness in there because that's something that we see too often. And so this is a really refreshing version and aspect of it. Gail, one of my favorite things about Harlem is how I would say women are just so strong and they expose the audience to what happens when you demand what you want and you truly put your foot down. So we do get to see your character quite a bit show that particular angle. So what is one thing you think women should take away from your character in particular?
I think one thing women should take away from my character is the power of their voice when it comes to saying what you want, saying what you will tolerate, knowing when to walk away, but also understanding when something is a red flag and when someone is a red person.
Mhm.
Dang.
That's very true. Because that happens so much and maybe so much more in this season. I know that we got those episodes and it felt like every episode after, concluded, you were like, okay, there's so much I want to unpack there. But I think that the series did a really good job at if this is the finale, that it really closed it really well and got to explore everyone's characters. But you guys did great. I love seeing y'all in this season, and I really wish we could explore more. But here we are. Anything's possible. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with me, and yeah, wish you best in your careers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We love Black Girl
Thank you.
Nerds.
Bye,
Absolutely.
guys.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I love the series, so I'm really excited to talk to you about it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
No problem. So this season was a great conclusion to the series. Can you talk to me about like the bittersweet feeling of coming up with those storylines?
Mm, sure. So I will say this. I had crafted an entirely different season three when we started the writer's room. And then midway through the writer's room, actually, it was more than midway through, I get a call that's basically like this is 90% going to be the last season of the show. And I was so gutted by that. But I also was like, okay, well, if that's the case, I'm going to have to completely throw everything in the trash can that we've done so far and like start over. Because if this is the end, I need everybody to walk away from the show feeling like satisfied and happy with where the women land in their personal and professional journeys. And that's not how I originally was crafting season three. So, yeah, I went into it completely differently with that in mind and
Mhm.
did not know. I don't know when this is out, but I didn't know who was even going to be pregnant in the reconceived version. I changed even that part of it. So there was
Okay.
a lot of things with like how I ended season three that came to me because I knew it was the end versus where I was before with it.
One thing I loved about it is, and now it's good that, well, now it's good that I know that because it makes a lot of sense. But one thing I do appreciate about the writing aspect of it, is the fact that it didn't feel forced. Like
Mm,
everybody's story tied together and ended in a very realistic way. It wasn't like, hey, let's pull this out of thin air and throw this together to make it fit. You did a really good job at making it seem as seamless because you can watch this and not even know it's the last season. So it was
yeah.
very well written. So kudos to you for that. And another thing that Harlem does really good or is really successful at is showing off Black excellence in each character, and they're all very successful. Can you talk to me about your thoughts when you first created the series to how it is now? What was it important that you wanted to shed light on?
Mm. I guess where I started and where I ended are completely different. But what I went into it with was this idea that I wanted to create the type of show that I loved watching when I was growing up. I loved watching Girlfriends. I love Sex and the City. I even love my mom got me on Golden Girls. So I've been watching like friendship shows for a really long time. And when I first wrote Harlem, it was on spec, and there was no friendship show like that with Black women on the air. This was pre-Insecure, it was pre like so many shows coming out. And I just really wanted to do something set in New York specifically because I kept seeing all these shows in New York that never showed Black and brown people. And I was like, well, mine's going to deliberately be in New York. And I'm going to show it like the New York that I lived in at the time. And it's going to have four women and it's going to be like those nostalgic shows that I loved and I'm not seeing. So that part of it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I got to do that. And that's where I started. And then by the end, it evolved beyond that to more dramatic storylines, if that makes sense. And I would say it's kind of more of a dramedy than a straight up like sitcom or comedy. I wanted to like delve into fertility issues and just career stuff and relationship stuff, but in a way that is a little darker or a little more real than some of the sitcoms of the past because you couldn't do that on those networks. It evolved into, I think, something that I could explore like real issues into. But I started, I think, in a sillier place in my mind. And then by the end, I was like, well, let me evolve with this because we're facing a lot of things in the world right now that are serious. And so maybe I can integrate some of that into the show.
That's so interesting that you mentioned Sex and the City and Girlfriends, because those are literally the two shows that, as I was trying to describe the show to my friend, that's the two shows that I used, especially because my friend loves Sex and the City, and I've never seen it, but I love the idea of dressing up I'm a sneakerhead, so I was late into getting into the heels and stuff. I have a friend that me and her used to go to brunch all the time, and she would dress up. And I
Yeah.
have two friends actually, they were like that, and that made me want to step up my game. Like, let me see what blazer I'm going to throw on, what outfit, and we're just going to lunch and like mimosas. But this show definitely showed what it's like to have those type of friends. So,
Yeah.
girl from Sex and the City, if that's what you're aiming for, you definitely hit that on the head. And my last question is about the new characters that you introduced, or actors in that case, Kofi, Gail, Logan. They're just so great and they fit in perfectly. And I could have seen them being regular. So how did you land on getting them in particular to join the cast?
Luck. I'm so happy. Basically, I don't know how it happened. I'm just really grateful, but they were like my wish list. Whenever I like do kind of a cast list when I'm coming up with like, okay, who can play this like guest star, who can play this like, recurring character. I start with like who would be awesome, and then you go from there. And I watched Queen Sugar, and then Kofi was also in Girls Trip, and I was just like, he's beautiful. If we could get him, I would love that. So then, you know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll actually do it, but like he would be he would be amazing, and like if we could pull him, that would be amazing. And then very quickly, I get like a message back that like Kobe loves the show and he's in, and I was like, what? So I was excited. And then Logan, I've been following for a long time, and then Dear White People as well, and I think that she's just a really good actress, but also like stunning, and I wanted someone to feel like very formidable to Meagan, if that makes sense. Like Meagan is such a beautiful woman that I was like, whoever plays Portia,
Opposite her?
yes, has to be so interesting looking and like has a presence that you can buy, that like Camille would be intimidated by her. And then Logan was at the top of that list for me because she's got this like presence to her and also is stunning. And then she came back and said, I would love to do it. And I was like, oh my, so I just kept getting lucky with naming like my dream person and then them coming back and saying yes. And then Gail, I've been trying to work with Gail for like a really long time and did not think of her for this because I didn't think that she was interested in doing a queer love story. I just didn't know that she was. And then she put herself up for it. And then I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And I saw her and Jerrie read together, and I just thought they had great chemistry. So yeah, it all worked out really magically to me.
And you have such a really realistic aspect of thinking of things, because if I'm thinking as a writer, who is gonna make Meagan Good feel I mean,
It's
Logan is a
Meagan,
good
right? It's
Meagan
Meagan
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. Yeah, I was like, that's hard to do. Like, there's very few people that can compete. So I was like, this is interesting. And then Logan actually is a very competitive choice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you did really good with that. Your casting and your way of thinking is just amazing. And I do appreciate talking with you. But if there's one thing I want to say to you, please continue to keep creating and writing, because this was just such a well put together series. It wasn't cheesy. It wasn't corny. It wasn't like anything that we have currently. Please continue to create. I hope to see more projects from you. I definitely will be on the lookout for that. So thank you so much for your
That means
time.
so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I just wrapped up watching the season and I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh, nice. I'm glad I'm glad we have 6 minutes together real quick.
Yes. Awesome. Well, your character, Ian, had a lot going on. And of course, in the spirit of no spoilers and try to, keep it under
Tough,
wraps. Yeah, it's really tough. But truthfully, overall, a lot of men could really learn from some of his behaviors, from
Yeah.
how to deal with an ex to how not to deal with an ex. So what advice do you have for people looking to keep a platonic relationship with an ex? Like, is it a big no-no? Can it work? Like, when do you think it gets messy?
I mean, I think it gets messy to keep the relationship going in any type of way, friendship or whatever. The second you truly move on. At least me personally. I mean, everybody has their own take on it, but I feel like that's one of the things that made Ian messy this season. Is the fact that he was articulate about what he wanted. He had some non-negotiables. It didn't go the way that he wanted at the end of season 2. And then, he moved on in a full sense. And I feel like we kind of understood where he was at with that. And then you come to season 3, and it doesn't seem like he moved on all the way yet. You know what I mean? So I feel like when you're indecisive about it, that's when it gets messy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then especially when there isn't a clear relationship with like the boundaries, like once it gets
Exactly.
crossed and the wires get crossed and somebody still has feelings, the other one doesn't, it gets
Yeah.
very messy. And I got to tell Megan earlier how relatable I thought y'all's characters are. And I know the show is really predominantly a lot of women watch it, but I feel like there's a lot of men that should be watching this because there's a lot for
Yeah.
them to learn from your character in particular. And he's so complex, but one thing he has always stressed is how bad he wants to be a dad. So, what do you think is the scariest thing and the most amazing thing about being a father?
I think it's amazing in totality, but you know what can be a little bit scary that you um, or at least that I didn't really notice before I was a father, is that you go into it thinking you're going to teach so much,
Mhm.
and you're going to learn so much about your children, and everything is about that. But once they're here, you know, you end up learning so much about yourself, you know, and it's kind of this thing you didn't really expect because, you know, it forces you to, you know, when you learn about yourself, it's kind of like therapy. You know, you're forced to look at yourself, you know, some of the traumas that you're bringing from the past. Is this truly what's going on right now, or am I holding on to something that I haven't cleared up? You know, and I think that aspect is what's the most, you know, scary slash enlightening part of it. You know, but the ups and the downs in totality, it's just the most amazing experience. You know, I wouldn't change it for the world. Love it.
Is there anything that could prepare you for being a father? Like, is there anything that like men can do to be prepared to become one, or it just kind of happens naturally?
Yeah, I think what you can do to be prepared is I would think there's plenty of things you can do to be prepared for sure. You know, because preparation is what's necessary for any type of success, you know, and we want to succeed as fathers. But I think what I would relay in terms of what I would, you know, just say from my experience is that you know, it really helps to get yourself all the way you know, healed as much as you can first, you know, whether you have a friend or whether you have I don't know, any type of relationship, your mother or you know, someone in your family and not in your family, or a therapist itself, you know, it really helps to sit there um and work with somebody to try to get yourself in the best place where a lot of these loose ends are wrapped up so that you're not, you know, so we're breaking those generational curses and we're not continuing them really. And I feel like the way to do that is to put your eyes on exactly what's going on and figure it out and feel it in its full totality so that we can have some control over it, so that we can actually use it where we need it. And it's not like this mess. It's more like a tool now, you
Mhm.
know?
No,
So I
that's
feel like that'd
absolutely
be a good
really
way.
good. That's a really good analogy of it and understanding. Thank you for that
Yeah.
piece. And you're also working with a lot of talented women, very dominant, very strong, talented women. How much fun was it to be on set with them? Like, was it a good time? Did it feel like work? Like, it just looks like it was just such a great time at all times on set.
It was I had the greatest experience on Harlem. We shot 3 seasons. It was over the span of 5 years, and I would say just to be surrounded by that, you know, just that level of artists within all of these women and that village that they naturally are. You know, it's I feel like the reason that it truly was a family is because we were around all of these just incredibly talented, just super in-depth women. You know what I mean, from top to bottom. And I feel like that. You know, in a way, I was just nurtured as a, you know, as a man, also as an artist, and it was just a beautiful thing. I feel like iron sharpens iron. Like that's a great analogy. But you know, even though that's true, as we bring it over here on this side, it was almost like, you know, our hearts end up growing together if you're around the right, you know, if you're around the right ones. And I definitely was around the right ones, in all these women in the show Harlem over the last 5 years. So it was just a beautiful family. It really was. And even though it was a lot of work, we had some daunting days. Because of that, it always just felt like it was family.
Yeah, no, it seemed very much like a very close-knit family. And on top of that, adding Gail and Logan and Kofi, I just really wish that, you know, all good things come to an end, but at the same
Mhm.
time, anything is possible. So if there ever was a fourth season, I really would love to see those additional characters also integrated and explored with you guys. But I do appreciate your time. The show is great. I put so many people onto it, so I'm just really excited to talk to you guys. So thank
Oh,
you
I
so much for
appreciate
your
that
time.
so much. And who knows, we don't get a fourth season, but maybe we'll bring them all back in the movie if it happens. We'll keep our
Yeah,
fingers crossed. But if not, it was a beautiful ride, and I appreciate you for being a part of it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
See ya.
Bye.
How are you?
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you guys. I've been a fan of the series, and this was a beautiful conclusion. So I'm glad I get to talk to y'all about it. Shoniqua, I'll start with you. So Angie is an absolute character and had me cracking up every time she was on screen. How close are you to being like that in real life?
It ebbs and flows. I immediately recognized her. I knew that she was someone who was vulnerable, but also fun. And so I was able to put what I'd say is like my natural je ne sais quoi, like my natural essence in it. But Angie is way more bold than I am. If I am that bold, I am very, very safe. Or also, I'm performing. So I wish I could be as off the cuff, maybe not as, but just have a little bit more of her bravery.
No, she's fun. She's a good time, and we love characters that are extremely relatable. That's one thing I've been saying through these interviews is how the series is extremely successful at A, showing Black excellence and success, but B, being very relatable. And even in the ways that we may not want to be acknowledged, like the double texting or like the pulling up to the ex's house. Like, but I love how like your character will definitely check your friends, like, hey, pump your brakes. So I do love that about your character. And Grace, there is a moment in one of the episodes where you take the high road with responding to social media backlash. Can you talk to me about your personal stance on how to deal with internet bullies, given that you are also in the public eye?
Oh. I think there's a few ways that you can do it. I think that the number one way is to solidify who you are in yourself. And so for me, it's about really strengthening my belief system and my faith. Because when you know who you are, no one else can tell you who you are. And so that is like a constant journey of continuing to strengthen that. I really got a big taste of that actually when I did Empire, because I played a very unlikable character. And so that's when I realized like, oh no, like 5 million people hate me? Wait, what? And so I think that when you kind of get a taste of it, then you start to understand, okay, this is what I'm gonna need to put in place as things move forward. And so I think that's the number one thing. And then I think the second thing is to just kind of learn how to curate your space. And so, not everybody gets access to me. Not everybody gets to add their voice to the narrative, right? Like in order to comment on my page, you have to follow me. And if you're following me, you say something wild, then you get blocked. Like it's so simple. It's so simple. Like you just don't have that free space. And I think that the reason why both of these things are so important to me is because I really, really value the power of words. And so I truly believe that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so I do not subscribe to anybody saying whatever they want to say, however they want to say it to me, and then expect that I'm going to absorb that as a part of my identity. That's just not going to happen. So not only will I cut that on your side, but then I'm also doing the work that I need to do on my side in order to maintain that sense of integrity and identity that I want.
A word. Thank you so much for that. And I'm glad that you brought up Empire, because that was one of my first thoughts. When I saw you in the series, I was like, yes, she's out here. Like she's doing stuff. Like I want to continue to see you on screen. So that's awesome. Thank you for speaking on that. And Shoniqua, when you were reading the script for season 3, without any spoilers, would you say there was any moments in your character story that made you say, I love that for her?
Absolutely. I love seeing Angie win. I think my sis has been through so much and has questioned her identity and went through a phase where she questioned whether this huge part of her sense of self and this thing that she loved so much was even for her anymore, and has since had so many blows from it with microaggression and even racist and not being able to like style Black hair and just leaving her. And so having all of these like blows to something you desire so badly and have poured into, I was so happy for her to finally step into this part of herself and get the outward and the external validation for something that she knew inwardly all along.
That's great. I actually very much related to that because in this line of work, doing journalism, speaking with talent, it was important for me to have like whoever I date is understanding of what I do and would not ask me to like dilute myself or minimize myself to be, less than. So I definitely related to your character very much. And this last question is for both of you collectively. Harlem does such a great job of showing off Black success and excellence in each character on the show. Can you each talk to me a little bit about your thoughts when you first joined on? Like, what is one thing that you wanted the series to shed light on in our culture?
Whew. Well, I think sisterhood for sure. That sisterhood can not necessarily have toxic elements within each other, right? Like we may be flawed individuals, but the way that we exercise sisterhood can actually be functional and beautiful and healthy and wonderful. So I think that's really important. But then like even as you mentioned affluence, I feel like in that vein for Quinn, it was just really important to not play somebody who was defined by her affluence, right? So I think sometimes it can be really easy to be like, oh yeah, that's the rich one. Like we talked about this, right? Oh, that's the rich one. She got money. But like I want to show different aspects of that. That's something she has. That's not necessarily someone she is. It's a life that she might have been born into, but Quinn is so much more than that. And I know that because if she lost all of her money today, who would she be? Right? So it's like she cannot be defined by that. So in what ways can we show the different elements and aspects of Quinn that are relatable, that are approachable, and that do resonate? And so that's something that I initially really wanted to do in the beginning as well for Quinn individually.
Absolutely.
I think it was so important to show humanity. I think that we can get I feel like we're still always constantly fighting for humanity and the ability to say, ouch, this hurts me and I have feelings as well and I'm relatable, and can you see that I'm also a woman and a human being as well with pains and fears and dreams as well. And so I really wanted to add vulnerability and fears to Angie. I think it's very easy to see women like her because I'm very much a woman like her who shows up boldly and colorful and sometimes has a light and an aura and a dynamic about me, and people go, you're my spirit animal, but don't hold space for me to feel anything else. And so having her have vulnerability, having her have moments of fears and insecurity and anxiety and show that she also has those moments too, so that you can also not only just check on your strong friend, but check on your funny friend, check on your bright friend, and know that even though that we show up brilliantly, it doesn't mean that you can still punch and poke and it doesn't hurt. And so having the showing fragility, I think was really important because Black women can be seen as strong so much, especially coming in the package of curvy and dark skin. We can just be seen as as someone who doesn't need to be treated with gentleness and grace as well. And so I loved adding softness to Angie as much as I could as well.
So good.
You guys are really preaching here. I'm loving all the tidbits, and I'm definitely taken in. Thank you, ladies, so much for taking time to speak with me. Amazing series, great conclusion. I hope there can be more. You never say never. So thank you guys so much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you, ladies, so much for taking some time to speak with me. I absolutely love the series, so I'm really excited to talk about it. Awesome. So I will start with you, Meagan. Your character has had such a roller coaster of a season. Like each episode, there was something happening left and right. And in the spirit of not talking about spoilers, I'll keep it real concise. What we love the most about Camille is that she's so relatable in some of the ways that we as women may not want to admit, right? From like double texting to pulling up on your ex face to face. So out of everything your character has faced, what is the one thing you feel like you relate to the most?
I think, someone asked me earlier, who do I think Camille's North Star is this season? And I think the one thing I relate to the most is that moment in life where you realize that, you can get all the advice, you need all the covering, you need all the honesty, accountability, all the things. But only you can decide what you really want, because ultimately the life that you want. And even if you don't know, to some degree what you want. And so, and I think sometimes we don't know because we want more than one thing at a time. And that sometimes makes us feel that we're confused, but we're not. And so I think that it's that she is her North Star. And I'm learning that my truth is my North Star between me and God. And then also just, learning to peel back the layers, asking yourself hard questions, that go, why was this decision, or why do you feel this way? Or even if you have a positive attitude or outlook, okay, great, but what got you here? And what do you think about this? And what do you really think about this? And what happened back then? And what happened back then that informed this, that, and all those things. And so I think all of that is really important. And for me has been a journey with Camille that has actually informed my journey as Meagan and has been a blessing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's totally, totally relatable. And Jerrie, we see Ty find true happiness, right? Like we get to learn something about her in her past that she kept secret. And I want to ask each cast member this, since this was such a beautiful conclusion to a very warm and funny series. When you read the script for season 3, without any spoilers, of course, what would you say, were there any moments where your character, that you saw something in their story and you were like, I love that for her?
There was a lot of moments. I will say when we did that last reading, by the time we got to like episode 5, all of us were in tears. And we could just feel that something amazing was going to happen here for this season. And for Ty, what I loved is that this season she gets to open up more about her past, that she gets to contend with it a little and maybe find some peace there. I feel like we got all these little nuggets with her husband coming in, and like the stuff that he brought up about her family, the flashback that we got a little bit. But this season, because of the her wanting to find love, this season she has to be cracked open completely and confronted completely, and she won't be able to shy away from it. And that I got it. I was excited when I read the script that she got to do that this season.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God, this season was just so epic, and I wish that there was more for it. But in the spirit of beautiful conclusions, Meagan, we do love how everything ended for Camille, and Harlem does such a great job at showing off Black excellence, and Black success. And in each character on the show, we get to see that. So can you talk to me about your thoughts when you first joined on to the cast, and what was important for you that the series got right and shed light on?
When I first signed on to the show, I think the thing that I was most excited about was the friend group and the dynamic between all the women, and the vulnerability with each one of the characters, and how this is my friend group. I know these girls, and there's a part of me in each one of them. And so I think for me, I just wanted to make sure that it was authentic, that women could see themselves in each one of these characters, that we were able to just be honest and say, yeah, we made mistakes along the way. We're figuring it out. We're not perfect. You could be very sexy and you could be very awkward. You could be very confident and you cannot all have it together. And so just being able to see that in these characters across the board. And also, none of one of these characters are archetypes. None of them are like this, that, this, that. And even if you may think that, when you peel back the layers, which each one of my co-stars have beautifully done, you realize they don't fit into any boxes. They are fully formed human beings. And to me, that was the most important thing.
And it did a very good job at doing that. Well, I very much wish I could talk to you guys longer, but my time has come. And I just want to say that this was such a really good ending. Like, it didn't force anything. Each episode left you on a cliffhanger. I wish there could be a season 4 for whatever reason. If there does come to be one, I would be really excited to see your characters further explored. So thank you guys so much for what you guys have given us, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.